Yes, indeed, folks, listen to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. Okay, so things have changed. As you might have noticed in the beta, there's been a recent build, and there have been some additions. We're going to be looking at the talents a little bit later on, and I invite you to contribute, because I don't really know any other class other than mages, because that's the real class, yes, indeed. And Troll is the real race, so anything other than that, I have no idea. You send it in to the Murloc at CynicalBrit.com. That is the Murloc at CynicalBrit.com, and I will provide the reading of the emails and the discussion and the debating. There'll also be an overarching discussion as to whether or not they've actually screwed this up, because last week I said... oh, God. Anyway, last week I said that it would be okay to do this as long as they made it work. The talents have to make sense. They've got to synergize properly, and they've got to be more exciting than the ones we've currently got, because that's what they promised at BlizzCon. That was their design goal. If they're not succeeding in doing that, then that's a real issue. Excuse me for 1 second. Oh, God. God. The sooner I get this surgery, the better. Right. Thus far, I don't really want to talk about this now. We'll talk about talents later. I'll give you guys about 15 minutes to send in some emails about it. And in the meantime, I'm talking about some hand-holding, specifically. The concept of hand-holding and the way that tutorials work. Now, for the longest time, I've said that there are a number of reasons why most of WoW players are awful. Now, one of these, and maybe one of the most important, is the fact that the kind of people that play World of Warcraft, more often than not, tend to be entitled scrubs. That means they pay $15 a month, ergo they expect a certain level of treatment from the people that make the game and from the other people that play the game. Now, that is an unreasonable expectation. That is something that shouldn't be happening and that they shouldn't be expecting, but they're on the internet. Ergo, they will act in a way that is uncivilized. They will act in a way that is unreasonable. They will act in a way that is akin to somebody who walks into the store of Walmart. Yes, indeed. If you ever met the kind of people that shop at Walmart, you will be well aware of what I speak. Now, those guys are a big problem. However, they are not the only problem. You can't fix WoW by kicking out everyone that's not very good at the game. That's just silly, and it's going to reduce the population by about 95%. The other thing that you've got to look at is just how well WoW teaches you to deal with what you're going to be coming up against in the endgame. Because if it doesn't do that properly, and it doesn't educate you as how to play your class in a responsible and effective manner, then the game has failed. It's like a single-player game, right? Single-player games have, for the last few years, been based almost entirely on tutorials. They use prompts and pop-ups. Sometimes they're interactive tutorials that require you to do certain things, and a lot of them are very annoying, for instance. Move the camera up, down, left, and right, hope-de-derp. Yeah, we get the idea. I'm pretty sure I can move on to the killing dudes now. Thank you very much. That would be wonderful. Instead of telling me, this is the shoot button. Yeah, I'm aware that this is the shoot button because it's a first-person shooter, and the shoot button is always the left mouse button. So why do I need to know that? This is how you move around. Well, I'm using a 360 pad. I wonder if it's the left stick. Oh, it's the left stick. I'm surprised. Thank you very much for teaching me that. I just started playing Devil May Cry 4 a couple of days ago. Got it on the Steam sale. I heard bad things, and I ran into a bad thing on Devil May Cry 4. Oh, stupid jumping puzzles. Fail the jumping puzzle, fight a room full of respawning monsters. Who the hell thought that was a good idea? What a terrible, terrible thing, especially when the cameras are so bad. Anyway, that's not the point. And it had tutorial that was so bloody obvious. It was really bad. It barely taught you how to actually fight in the game and the concept of comboing and all that kind of things, like press this button 50 times, run around the room, dodge these attacks. We never really strung them together in a way that made sense. It was all disjointed. It wasn't like a real fight, so it didn't teach you anything. You know, I could probably have guessed by pressing random buttons that X is gun and Y is hit with sword and B is use your silly arm thing. That's not that hard to realise. And A is jump, you say? Never! That's the kind of thing that is very easy to understand. But what is not so easy to understand are concepts like correct combos and how to fight multiple opponents, for instance. The optimal way of doing that kind of thing. Now, a lot of this is for your own discovery, but we're talking about a game, say, like Devil May Cry 4, that is marketed towards more hardcore gamers. The Devil May Cry series always has. But look at World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft increasingly is being marketed towards people that haven't played an MMO before. So you have to assume a level of knowledge that is as close to nominal and or zero as humanly possible. So, think about it. We've played MMOs before, so when we go into an MMO, we expect certain things. We expect a hotbar with triggerable abilities. We expect the concept of leveling up and gaining more abilities. We expect that there will be questing now, because of course WoW really solidified that as part of the design philosophy of MMOs in general. We expect that there will be rewards for questing. You will gain experience for it. You will gain gold. You will have to travel to different areas. We expect that some areas will be too high level, and that we have to follow the breadcrumbs, as it were, and go where the quest guys tell us to. That's the kind of thing we as MMO players now expect. But what about people that have never played MMOs before? What did they expect? Well, that's the great question, isn't it? You don't know what their expectations really are, so you have to assume the bare minimum, which is nothing at all. If all I played my entire life was fighting games, brawlers, and football games, would I be readily equipped to go into World of Warcraft? Because I'm thinking no. I wouldn't know what I was doing. The concept of hotkey abilities and repeatedly pressing the same button over a few seconds to attack, I mean, for God's sake, if I'm a mage, and all I'm pressing is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, that makes sense to me, but to some guy that's only ever played racing games or RTS, no. They wouldn't really know how to deal with that. And what's worse is the people that come in and have barely ever played games at all. You know, we're talking about guys that maybe just have a Nintendo Wii, you know? That's the kind of people that Blizzard are now marketing to, because they are a new and open market. They are available. They are rattling their coin purses at you and offering to give you 3 shillings if you will take their mind off their otherwise dreary and boring life through the method of laborious questing. That's what they're looking for. Now, there were comments regarding some of my latest videos, say the Gnome starting zone, which is, of course, the Dwarf starting zone, and the Human starting zone in Northshire. And some people said, by saying that you should offer a more what's the word I'm looking for? Not so much complex, but a more complete tutorial experience, that you are leading people by the hand and or nose. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a generation of brain-dead players that can't think for themselves, and that they should be discovering some of this stuff on their own. I have to disagree. The problem that I see right now is that people can get to maximum level without learning how to play their class properly. And a number of things have contributed to that. The shorter leveling experience, I don't believe has. I don't think Recruit a Friend has either. Consider the way that Recruit a Friend actually works. You have to play with someone who already plays the game, so they should be able to teach you. It's like a mentoring system, which is perfect, but of course you can't mentor millions upon millions of new players. It doesn't work that way. So RAF only really helps a small minority. Some people have argued that RAF and the speeding up of leveling has contributed to a worse selection of players, because they don't have as much time to learn their class. I have to beg to differ. I'm sorry, it doesn't take that much to learn. Others argue that Wrath of the Lich King is directly responsible for this kind of nonsense. And I would, in that respect, agree to some extent. You're looking at an expansion that has rewarded mediocrity and has made it acceptable to fail. Because these dungeons and this content has a very loose failure state. It's difficult to wipe. Way more difficult to wipe than it used to be. And you've got more class abilities that can help you out, but you've also got content that is easier and more forgiving. We're talking about things that would have killed you in TBC and vanilla will just hurt you a little bit and make you scream for your healer over Vent, assuming you're even using it. That's a problem. But that doesn't account for players that grow to max level without knowing how to play the game. There's a few things you need to look at there, and there are principles that you can apply from that Wrath of the Lich King argument to it. The first and foremost is the idea that dungeons should be challenging at every level. They should require a proper group at every level. They should be easily accessible but hard to beat at every level, and they should give appropriate rewards to justify it. Now, it's gotten to the point where a big pass needed to be done on all of the items in instances to actually get people in them, and that looks like it's happening. We already saw that there were some changes made quite a while ago to instances like Ragefire Chasm, whereby it now drops blues. That's not a beta thing, that's been in for a while, but it is a recognition by Blizzard that changes have to be made. There was already a fairly large pass to some of the instances. However, things have changed now, as have the stats and the things that players are expecting to get. So, what you want is a system whereby players are absolutely encouraged to go into the dungeons, and those dungeons are made easy to get to. And what they're doing is they're rebalancing a lot of the dungeons to ensure that they are in the correct level range. For instance, I'm talking about Dire Maul in Feralus. Dire Maul used to be level 57 to 60 in a zone that was designed around level 40 to 45. That's now being changed. They're looking to make sure that everything is properly balanced in that way. To teach people how to raid, you have to put them into dungeons that are sufficiently challenging. Do you call that hand-holding? Because I don't. I don't think that's hand-holding at all. I think that's a proper method of teaching. I think that in order to successfully master a skill, one has to be given a very basic rundown of it to begin with. There are a lot of degree courses, say, not all, but some, that encourage you to go in there with a clean slate. They want to teach you from the very basics. They want to grow your knowledge of the area in an organic manner that makes sense, because it's the best way to learn. So what you need is a custom-crafted curriculum. That's really hard to say. A custom-crafted curriculum for somebody who's just started World of Warcraft. And that means you've got to introduce them in the most simplistic of ways. Now, you saw in the Human Starting Zone video that they've gone some way to help with that. There was a quest in there where you have to go outside and you've got to use charge. You've got to use it. And it'll give you a brief description in the quest text of what it does. Now, in the recent beta build, they have put in a nice new big question mark in the center of the UI. The new UI is getting prettier, I might add. They're adding a lot of cool elements. Now, this big question mark will glow if it's got a new message for you. So it's like the old tutorial system. It's way less messy, though, and it's a little bit more visual. It seems to me that what they could do with that, they could expand it even further. They could add little video clips to it. When you get a new ability, for instance, what I would like to see is that little thing start to glow, and when you clicked it, it would bring up a little video in the corner which shows that being used, maybe even narrate it. If you need somebody to do it, Blizzard, I am available. Seriously, my rates are very reasonable. So you have a little narrated video pop up and say, this is this ability, this is what it does, this is its uses, and this is the kind of situation where you'd want to use it. We're talking about teaching people the idea of priority rotations. I mean, you've got priority orders and you've got rotations. Some classes use priority orders, like, say, I think warriors and maybe rogues sort of do. And then you've got classes that use rotations, i.e. they press certain buttons in a certain order. You've got to teach people when is the best time to use this. For instance, with the warrior from the start. By level 5, the priority order you have is as follows. If charge available, charge mob. If victory rush activated, click victory rush, then spam slam. And once it's done, rinse that and repeat it. Now to me, as a player, that seems very obvious. That's something I can learn very easily, but it seems to me that they should be making sure that other players realize this as well if they're new to the game. Now, does that make the game too easy? I don't think so. Tutorials are now a reality of almost every game on the planet, and it's come to the point whereby if I don't have a sufficient tutorial, I won't even bother playing a game. I don't have the time anymore to sit down and read a manual. I certainly don't have the time to sit there reading page after page of text tutorials that have no interactivity whatsoever. The best way that a lot of people learn is by doing. If they are shown and said, you do this, and you get involved in the learning process, and you will learn far easier. It is okay to make starting areas a little bit easier, as long as the hand-holding allows you to be a much better player by the end of it. Level 85 content is what counts at the end of the day. That's where you need to have good players with you. Level 1 to 5, no. Not so much. You can have scrubs there, you can hold them by the hand, you can teach them in the most simplistic, babyish way possible, as long as they don't suck in my dungeon group. My name is Total Biscuit, and you're listening to, yes indeed, Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I'm going to give you a couple of tracks from Frank Lepaki. This is a remix of No Mercy, and then we're going on to Industrial. Be right back after this. Enjoy.